Tonight, Hurricane Dorian's on the move, picking up speed and growing larger. Right now, Florida facing tropical storm force winds, and why the newest track shows it's more of a threat to the Carolinas than ever before. Plus, a look at the utter devastation emerging from the Bahamas, a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Thousands of homes flattened. We'll tell you what's hampering the rescue and recovery efforts. Also tonight, new information on a tragedy at sea. 34 dead in a fire on a California dive boat. We're now learning some of the victims were students and an entire family. Breaking news, new gun rules for Walmart. Why the retailer plans to stop selling some ammunition and won't allow customers with guns in their stores. The crackdown on vaping expands. With severe cases of lung disease on the rise, 3 more states raised the legal age to buy e-cigarettes. How a tragedy brought bitter football rivals together to heal their community. And why Facebook may be unfriending your likes.
This is the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell, reporting tonight from Cocoa Beach, Florida.
Good evening. This is our Western edition. And as we come on the air, Hurricane Dorian is here in Florida, lashing this coastal community. The beach was closed this afternoon, and authorities are urging people to shelter in place. Some counties have issued curfews with a dangerous storm surge forecast overnight. And tonight we're getting our first aerial look at the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in the Bahamas. Look at these stunning images. This is actually Abaco Island. Homes are flattened as far as the eye can see. The official death toll is 5, but it is expected to go much higher. Abaco and Grand Bahama were pounded by Dorian for 2 solid days. The Red Cross says nearly half of the homes were damaged or destroyed. 62,000 people are without drinking water. Take a look at this photo. It shows a marina on Abaco before the storm. This shows it after, with boats scattered throughout the property. Tonight, Dorian is on the move. It is heading north and westward toward the U.S. coast at about 6 miles an hour. And it is growing larger. That's what's significant. This hurricane is about 100 miles offshore, and there are now hurricane force winds that extend 60 miles from the center. So it is getting very, very close. And new tonight, the storm's track shows it could still make landfall in the Carolinas. Watches and warnings now extend to the North Carolina-Virginia border. We'll have more on the forecast in just a moment, but we're going to begin with our first detailed look at the devastation in the Bahamas. This is what 48 straight hours of hurricane force winds, 30 inches of rain, and a storm surge of as much as 23 feet can do. Massive devastation across the northern Bahamas, the Abacos flattened. The Red Cross reports thousands of homes are believed damaged or destroyed. Now comes the desperate search for survivors. So far, the official death toll stands at 5, but authorities expect that number to rise. Ingrid McIntosh lost her grandson.
My grandson dead. I just seen my grandson about 2 days ago. My grandson just tell me he loved me.
Much of the islands now resemble a wasteland. Homes torn inside out, cars destroyed, trees stripped and toppled, residential streets now rushing rivers.
The ocean is literally here. It's all around us.
Earlier today, Tim Aylen filmed himself and his family fleeing their Freeport home in dangerously rising waters, their dogs in tow, exhausted, fear in their eyes.
Got it? I know.
Major infrastructure has been rendered useless. The Grand Bahama Airport, for example, is underwater. And that's just one of the challenges rescuers face in the midst of such destruction. Coast Guard Captain Sean Cook is in Opelika, Florida.
I've never seen a storm that pauses and frustrates response operations like Dorian has.
Those operations are spotty. Some people are using jet skis and motorboats to rescue people. Families have turned to social media to connect with friends and relatives. Local rescue agencies say they won't be able to begin their work until tomorrow, but the U.S. Coast Guard says it has begun to fly in relief supplies.
We are concentrating very much on parts, fuel, people, communications gear, the very basics, foundational blocks that we need to continue conducting the response operations.
And our Nikki Batiste has just landed in the Bahamas. She spoke to us from NASA just a short time ago.
Norah, this is the General Aviation Facility at the Nassau Bahamas International Airport. This is the staging area for the Coast Guard as they bring people in from the Abaco Island. Conditions were really poor today, but they were able to bring back 5 people so far. As you can imagine, it's extremely dangerous to fly back and forth from here to the Abaco Island. The Coast Guard is hoping the conditions improve tomorrow so that they can save many, many more lives. Norah?
All right, Nikki, thank you. And just about 90 miles down the coast from here in Jensen Beach, we're getting reports of strong winds and heavy rain. Janet Shamlian is there.
Norah, tropical storm force winds are battering this community. Bands of rain and gusts up to 55 miles an hour are churning the water here and sending it up right over the seawall. This is what Hurricane Dorian is delivering to Florida, even as the eye of the storm is 100 miles off the coast. At this hour, shelters in Palm Beach County remain open. Here in Martin County, the sheriff says that there are power outages and trees down related to the storm, and there is beach erosion up and down the coast of Florida. Here at Jensen Beach, there is a tropical storm warning still in effect, as well as a storm surge warning. Norah?
Janet, thank you. We're seeing that same beach erosion here, and the hurricane is wreaking havoc on airline schedules, shutting down one of America's busiest airports in Orlando. More than 1,400 flights were canceled today because of Dorian. So where is this storm headed right now? Let's bring in meteorologist Megan Glaros from WBBM in Chicago. Megan, what did we learn from this latest advisory?
Norah, what the good news out of this, I suppose, is that it's moving north now, away from the Bahamas. They're out of that eye wall. They are still getting impacts from Dorian, but it's moving away. For folks along the Florida coastline, like you and your crew, you're starting to get tropical storm force conditions out there, and that will continue through tonight into tomorrow. Right now, a Category 2 storm. Winds are at 110 miles per hour on this. It is moving now a little bit more, up to about 6 miles per hour on off to the north and west. And what I'm anticipating from this is that it does not make any sort of landfall along the Florida coastline, though it will impact everyone in the Sunshine State. We are watching for the potential for there to be a landfall maybe somewhere along the South or North Carolina coastline. So that's the next big game changer in terms of where this track will be. So let's take a peek at what that means for folks there, because we do know we're seeing tropical storm force gusts, which are already occurring across a large portion of Florida. Now could even see hurricane force conditions up across anywhere from Charleston north into North Carolina. Norah.
Megan, I want to ask you, I know that this is peak hurricane season, but what other storms are we potentially facing?
So active out there right now, Norah. Let me show you. For example, we've got Juliet, which is a Pacific hurricane. We've got another tropical storm right here for Nand. We've got Dorian, which we've been tracking. This is another area of possible development. This is tropical depression number 8, and there's yet another area off the coast of Africa. It's really just getting revved up. The actual peak, September 10th, Norah.
Sounds like we'll be talking a lot, Megan. Thank you. And don't forget, you can get updates on Hurricane Dorian around the clock by using our CBS News app. You can also find our streaming service, CBSN, at cbsnews.com. Now to Southern California, where the search for survivors was called off today, more than 24 hours after a scuba diving boat caught fire and sank. The Coast Guard today released dramatic video of the rescue effort. Investigators confirmed that dozens were trapped by the flames, leaving them with no chance to escape. 34 are feared dead. Jonathan Vigliotti is in Santa Barbara with new details about the victims.
This newly released Coast Guard video shows the Conception still burning as crews rushed in to help. Today, the official word inevitable, but still devastating.
Sadly, no additional survivors have been found.
It is never an easy decision to suspend search efforts.
Among the 34 believed dead, an entire family, 3 young women, sisters from the community of Stockton, their father and stepmother. A school in Santa Cruz is mourning the loss of 2 of its students.
Our hearts and thoughts are with the families and victims and those yet missing, particularly those of our students and parents on board.
Also missing, Christy Finstad, 41 years old, a diving instructor who organized the trip aboard the Conception and well known in the diving community. At a makeshift memorial, this woman says her daughter was on board.
And she just wanted to follow her dream of the ocean. Never thought I would ever have to go through this.
It's still unknown what sparked the fire, but we're learning more. The ship had passed its most recent safety inspection, and there were 2 firefighting systems on board. Still, below deck, all passengers were trapped. The stairs and escape hatch both in flames.
I can't breathe.
The crew who were up top jumped and were rescued by Bob and Shirley Hansen.
I said, well, you should have had 2 exits there. And he says, we do. He said, but the one in aft was already on fire also. So they were just trapped in there.
Family members attended today's news conference looking for answers.
I know that the department has spoken with some of the surviving crew. What have they said about the fire, how it started?
They will be interviewed formally today by investigators. The humanity of this is very evident, the devastating impact on so many families, and that is certainly very troubling.
And we got another answer. I just spoke with the Sheriff's Department. They tell me they now believe that this fire started on the 2nd level above the sleeping quarters. Also today, families have been giving DNA samples to help identify the victims. And we have been watching, Norah, as the FBI has been carting away evidence gathered at the scene. Norah?
So tough to hear those details. Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you. Chaos and confusion erupted at Newark International Airport in New Jersey. A flight attendant at Alaska Airlines became suspicious of 2 men last night and sounded an alarm, telling everyone to evacuate. The men were later questioned by police and released without charges. No one was hurt in the race for the exits. Alaska Airlines is investigating this false alarm. Federal law enforcement sources confirmed that the gunman in last weekend's mass shooting in West Texas purchased his AR-15 style rifle in a private sale. Now the search for the seller is underway. Sources say 36-year-old Seth Ator had previously failed a federal background check because he was determined to be mentally unfit. He killed 7 people and wounded nearly 24 others in a rampage that stretched for 10 miles. He was fired from his job the morning of the shootings and called an FBI hotline and 911 before and during the attacks. Ator was killed by the police. And that rampage came just weeks after 22 people were killed in another mass shooting at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas. Well, Walmart today announced major changes in its sale of ammunition and its policy regarding customers who openly carry guns. Maria Villarreal has more on this and breaking news about the gun policy of the nation's largest grocery store chain.
More than 70 people have died in mass shooting incidents since August 3rd. Odessa, Dayton, and El Paso, where a gunman killed 22 people inside a Walmart store. Today, Walmart CEO Doug McMillon referenced these tragedies as he announced sweeping changes to the retail giant's ammunition and gun sales. In a memo, he writes, "It's clear to us that the status quo is unacceptable." The company plans to discontinue sales of short-barrel rifle and handgun ammunition and stop handgun sales in Alaska, the last state where they still sold those weapons. They'll request customers no longer openly carry firearms into stores in states where open carry is permitted, but they can still buy deer rifles and ammo. Within hours of the announcement, the NRA tweeted, "It is shameful to see Walmart succumb to the pressures of the anti-gun elites. Lines at Walmart will soon be replaced by lines at other retailers who are more supportive of America's fundamental freedoms."
When you get the bad guys in there, they're not going to follow the rules.
Roy Gillian owns the Barn Door Steakhouse in Odessa. The rise in mass shootings across the country prompted him to get a concealed handgun license.
Walmart's now saying we're going to scale back on ammunition. We're going to scale back on handguns. Your face says it all, but...
Why?
You don't think that's the right decision?
No, because those people, the perpetrators, the bad people, are going to get that stuff anyway. And so all you're doing is you're handcuffing the people that want to take care of their family, the people that want to go into protection mode.
Norah, late this afternoon, we did learn that Kroger is joining Walmart and asking its customers not to openly carry firearms in any of its stores except for law enforcement. We also know they are pushing for stricter gun laws.
That is significant, Maria. Thank you. And as the wind picks up here in Florida, we've got much more ahead still on the CBS Evening News, including what's behind the new nationwide crackdown on teen vaping. Later, why Facebook may be closing the book on likes. Three states this week raised the minimum age to purchase cigarettes and e-cigarettes. Dr. John LaPook on what's behind a nationwide crackdown on teen addiction to nicotine.
So you did vape a little bit?
Yes. 17-year-old Caleb Mintz is on the front lines of the war on youth e-cigarettes. He tried them briefly himself before stopping and has watched as more and more of his friends use them.
I've seen people use it in classrooms when the teacher's not looking. Obviously, the bathroom has now become the jewel room and the vaping room.
Is that what it's called?
That's what some people call it. I've even seen a joke where someone said, "Why is there a toilet in the vape room?"
There are new efforts to curb the rise in e-cigarette use among young people. This week, Arkansas, Texas, and Vermont joined 9 other states in enacting laws that raise the legal age to buy any tobacco product, including e-cigarettes, to 21. 5 more states will have similar laws in effect by next year. The CDC reports 215 possible cases of severe lung disease and 1 death associated with the use of e-cigarette products, which contain the same nicotine that has caused addiction with regular cigarettes. After seeing Caleb's experience with e-cigarettes, his mother Meredith Berkman co-founded Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes, or PAVE.
We're an army of parents. I refer to myself as a momvakit. We're an army of motivated momvakits who are not going to allow our kids to become a generation of nicotine addicts.
Some health advocates are pushing for higher taxes on e-cigarette products and want the same regulations that ban indoor smoking applied to vaping. Norah?
Really interesting, John. Thank you. And coming up, gymnastics superstar Simone Biles breaks her silence over her brother's arrest in a triple murder.
When you can't watch the CBS Evening News on TV, don't worry. We've got you covered. Subscribe to our podcast, sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield.
The world's greatest gymnast is opening up about her brother's arrest in a triple murder. Simone Biles said on Twitter that her heart aches for everyone involved, especially for the victims and their families. Her 24-year-old brother, Army soldier Tevin Biles Thomas, is accused of killing 3 men at a New Year's Eve party in Cleveland. Facebook is considering a move aimed at eliminating popularity contests on the social media platform. It may soon begin hiding likes and other reactions to posts. Now, those who created the post would still see the list of people who reacted to it, but the number of likes won't be displayed. Instagram tested a similar move last month.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by BP. We see possibilities everywhere to help the world keep advancing.
And here in Cocoa Beach, we are feeling the effects of Hurricane Dorian, which is still about 100 miles off Florida. Tonight, Dorian is a Category 2 hurricane with sustained winds of 110 miles an hour, and it is heading northwest. It will skirt the coastline. There are now watches and warnings that extend all the way up to North Carolina and the Virginia border, with a possible landfall later this week in the Carolinas. And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Cocoa Beach, Florida. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.